Tell you what, we can't say nothing bad about Bronny. We don't want Bron rocking up on us on center court.
Bronny's a prospect. I think he should be in the G League. He's not ready to play in the NBA right now. He's not ready to play in the NBA first.
The conversation around legacy in the NBA has reached a point where it's no longer just about rings, stats, or highlight reels. It's about something way more uncomfortable: identity crossing into opportunity. And nobody has been louder about that than Charles Barkley, who has openly questioned what he sees as a completely different era of basketball unfolding in front of us. The moment the spotlight shifted to LeBron James and his son Bronny James sharing the same professional orbit, Barkley didn't hold back. His message wasn't complicated. It was blunt, almost uncomfortable in its honesty, and it instantly split fans down the middle. And here's where the tension starts building. Because this isn't just about one father-son duo in the NBA. It's about what people believe the league used to be versus what it has become today. Barkley's argument, at its core, is simple. In his era, something like this would never have been allowed to develop the same way. Not because of talent, but because of structure, locker room culture, and the brutal hierarchy that defined professional basketball decades ago. And when he says that, it doesn't land as nostalgia, it lands as a challenge to the modern game itself. The moment Barkley started speaking about the situation, the reaction was immediate. Some fans called it honesty, others called it bitterness. But the reality sits somewhere in between, because what he's really pointing at is the collision between legacy and opportunity. LeBron isn't just a player in this story, he's a system shifter. And Bronny isn't just a rookie, he's living inside a narrative that already existed before he even touched an NBA court. That's where things start to get complicated.
People in front of Bronny, people in behind Bronny, he is the best option at that point. Playing in the G League, that was the option. LeBron James' son, and then that's the narrative there too for him. Like, I want to be the first NBA player to play with his son. All your feelings go out the window. Who cares if he's ready or not? This is a moment in time. It's here.
And this is where it gets even more layered. Because while the NBA is dealing with this rare father-son overlap, football is quietly experiencing a similar conversation with Shedeur Sanders. In Cleveland, every practice rep, every OTA throw, every depth chart adjustment is being analyzed under a microscope of expectation, not because of controversy, but because of perception. Just like Bronny, Shedeur is walking into a situation where his name carries weight before his performance even fully speaks. What Barkley is really reacting to, whether people agree or not, is the idea that modern sports have started blending development with entertainment at a level his generation never experienced. Back then, roles were earned in silence. Now, roles are discussed in real time across media platforms before they are even finalized inside the building. And when you put that against a father-son storyline like LeBron and Bronny, it becomes a lightning rod for debate about fairness, opportunity, and legacy influence.
Saying, yo, he's not ready yet. And to put him out there, getting him exposed to that is really hard to watch.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. This entire debate isn't just about whether Bronny deserves a roster spot or whether LeBron influenced anything behind the scenes. It's about how the definition of earned has changed in modern sports culture. Barkley's frustration isn't aimed at one player, it's aimed at a system where perception travels faster than development and where narratives sometimes arrive before performance has a chance to stabilize. Now, when Barkley says things like, "This would never happen in my era," he's pointing at a culture where veterans ruled the locker room without exception. Young players didn't arrive with media storylines already attached to them. They arrived, they waited, they developed, and they survived hierarchy before they ever got a chance to lead. That's the contrast he keeps emphasizing when discussing today's NBA environment. But here's where the pushback comes in. The modern league isn't the same physically, structurally, or commercially. Teams invest in storytelling now as much as scouting. The presence of LeBron and Bronny in the same league doesn't just create a basketball moment, it creates a global sports event. And whether Barkley likes it or not, that visibility changes how organizations operate, how fans engage, and how opportunities are framed.
You know, it's unfair that he is there, is what I'm going to say. You know, I think it's clear, like, the reason why he's there is because LeBron, you know, has kind of made sure he's there. he's just not an NBA player. He looks, in my mind, like almost like worse than he was last year, or it hasn't been any improvement.
At the same time, the pressure on Bronny is not something people can ignore. Every minute he plays is filtered through expectations he didn't create himself. Every mistake becomes a headline. Every success becomes a comparison. That's where the conversation starts to mirror what's happening in Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders. Different sport, same psychological environment. A young athlete trying to build identity while standing in the shadow of a much larger public narrative. And this is where young players usually make a mistake. They start playing against expectations instead of playing within the system. They try to silence critics instead of focusing on repetition. But in environments like this, whether it's the NBA or NFL, that shift in mindset is exactly what slows development the most. Because once you start reacting to noise, you stop building consistency. Barkley's criticism also taps into something deeper about respect in the league. In his playing days, respect was earned through repetition and confrontation. Today, respect is often negotiated alongside branding, media presence, and long-term organizational investment. That doesn't make it less legitimate, it just makes it different. And difference is what creates controversy when eras collide. Meanwhile, inside the Lakers ecosystem, the LeBron Bronny dynamic isn't being treated as a distraction, it's being treated as history in motion. For LeBron, it's a career milestone that goes beyond championships. For Bronny, it's a pressure test unlike anything most rookies experience. And for the organization, it's a balancing act between development and expectation management that has no perfect blueprint. At the same time, Barkley continues to lean into his belief that basketball should remain uncomfortable for young players before it becomes accommodating. He's not arguing against talent, he's arguing against accelerated validation. In his view, struggle is part of the process that builds long-term durability in the league. Without it, he believes players are being placed into situations they haven't fully earned yet. This is where it gets dangerous, because once legacy and opportunity overlap this publicly, every decision becomes symbolic. A substitution isn't just tactical, it's interpreted as a statement. A rotation change isn't just developmental, it's seen as endorsement or rejection. That's exactly what makes the LeBron Bronny situation so polarizing, and why Barkley's comments hit so hard across fan bases. Now, zooming back out, the parallel with Shedeur Sanders becomes even more relevant. In Cleveland, every OTA rep carries meaning far beyond its actual competitive weight. Coaches are evaluating not just performance, but composure under narrative pressure. And just like Bronny, Shedeur is operating in an environment where attention is part of the challenge, not just the reward. What connects both stories is not favoritism or controversy, it's visibility. Both players exist in systems where development is no longer private. Everything is documented, analyzed, and debated in real time. That creates pressure older generations never had to navigate, and it forces young athletes to grow in public instead of behind closed doors. Barkley's resistance to that idea isn't necessarily about rejection of modern athletes. It's about his belief that growth requires distance from noise. In his era, failure stayed in the locker room. Today, it circulates online within minutes. That shift alone changes how young players experience their early careers. And yet, despite all the criticism, both LeBron and Bronny continue moving forward in their roles without stepping away from the moment. That in itself is part of the story, because whether people agree with how the opportunity arrived or not, the performance still has to be evaluated on the court. And that's the one truth even Barkley doesn't dispute. As the debate grows louder, the NBA finds itself at a crossroads between tradition and evolution. Barkley represents one side, structure, hierarchy, and earned progression. The modern league represents another, visibility, branding, and accelerated opportunity. Neither side is entirely wrong, but they are fundamentally different in how they define readiness. And that brings everything to a boiling point, because as long as Bronny's in the league and LeBron is still active, the comparison will never stop. Every game becomes a reference point. Every performance becomes a data point in a much larger legacy conversation. And Barkley knows that's exactly why he keeps speaking on it, because once a narrative like this starts, it doesn't fade quietly. So the real question isn't whether Barkley is right or wrong. The real question is whether the modern NBA has changed so much that earning it now looks completely different than it did before. And if that's true, then the next generation of players, whether in basketball or football, won't just be judged by performance alone, but how they survive the weight of being seen before they are fully formed. And at that point, the debate stops being about LeBron and Bronny. It becomes about what the league is turning into. and whether anyone is actually comfortable with it.